Hello there, it's Griff, that's not me, and this is a video all about the glitches so bad they made your hardware break. I'm including all types of glitches in this video, so that means not only traditional bugs, but hardware problems and weird hacks too. Regardless, all the entries you're about to see have one thing in common: they made your hardware unplayable. Let's take a look. Number 1, Anthem. We'll kick off with the game that gave me the idea for this video, and that is BioWare's co-op action RPG that came out to a sort of mixed reception in February 2019. Well, I say mixed, everyone was furious. Shortly after release there were reports of a bug in the game that made PS4s crash, which if you've ever turned off your PS4 without shutting it down first, you'll know can potentially delete your save files. So that's bad enough, but for a number of people the bug was even worse than potentially losing your hard drive content. People were reporting their consoles being bricked, which is a term used to describe hardware that you can't even turn on anymore, and thus becomes nothing more than a rather fancy brick. Reddit user BlueTide Pro was one of the first to report this exact scenario happening. After hours of troubleshooting, eventually they found that booting up the PS4 in safe mode and selecting rebuild database finally got it working, but for the average player, that fix would be well outside of the realms of their expertise. Since launch, there have been dozens, if not hundreds of cases of Anthem shutting down PS4s. BioWare addressed the issue and put out a patch, so everything's fine now and no one has reported any permanent damage, but for a time Anthem was a very risky game to buy, and not just because it's incredibly underwhelming. Next up, this is the prank that bricked everyone's Xbox Ones back in 2013. Shortly after the console launched in December, a supposed hack started circulating online that claimed to unlock the Xbox One's hidden ability to play Xbox 360 games. All you had to do was input this sequence of button presses. It's like a little cheat code, but instead of getting a secret character, you got access to a whole library of incredible games from the past. If that sounds too good to be true, it's because it was, and all the code did was lock your console into an endless reboot cycle. You're probably thinking now, come on, why would anyone fall for that? But there's a reason people at the time thought there was a grain of truth in it. With Xbox One, Microsoft wanted to make it easy for anyone to develop games. Like, remember when they tried to teach us all how to be a game developer with Kodu in 2009? I don't really remember that either. To that end, they made it so you can literally just build games directly on Xbox One. Before, with Xbox and Xbox 360, you had to buy a development kit which cost around £20,000. That seems quite high, I read that on the internet somewhere. Anyway, there were development tools built into Xbox One, which is why I do kind of sympathise with the people who fell for it, even if Major Nelson didn't. You know what, those instructions do look properly legit. I'd probably do anything if it came on a little green infographic like that. Anything. Third, this is the infamous PS4 messaging scandal of 2018. PS4 users were reporting being unable to play their PS4s after opening certain messages on the console. The first case was a guy called Hunter Stark who explained on Reddit how he was playing Rainbow Six Siege when an opponent sent him and his team a message and managed to crash the whole team out of the game. Oh god, the only way those affected could turn their PS4s on again is to do a factory reset and completely wipe the console. Soon, more people were getting these malicious messages. What happened was, the messages contained characters the system couldn't recognize, and it caused it to basically have a breakdown. The same kind of thing happened in 2017 with the iPhone. With this one, the so-called core text bug used a combination of ASC2 and Unicode characters to crash your phone once you open the text. Oh, by the way, now you've seen that message, your computer will turn off in 30 seconds. Sorry about that. Back on the PS4 messages, Sony advised everyone to set their messages to private and then patched out the exploit 2 days later. For the record, Sony said PS4s were never bricked, just sent into a crash loop that you could reverse by deleting your messages on the PlayStation mobile app. But if you weren't technical enough to do that, your PS4 was as good as bricked, and there's your bricks again. Lovely stuff. Number 4, and another fairly recent one, this is about the third-party docks that bricked Nintendo Switches in 2018. People usually buy docks if they want to plug in some extra peripherals or want a new look for their system, but in the case of the Nyko portable docking kit, it simply caused Switches to break, which is not what you want really. I could break my Switch for free by stepping on it. Anyway, in March 2018, Nyko dock users started experiencing some weird stuff, like being unable to use any dock afterwards, meaning the Switch was now permanently a handheld and couldn't connect to a TV. Other people found their consoles failing to turn on altogether. And it wasn't all related to Nyko docks. There were instances of the Fast Snail dock doing the same. The reason these complaints suddenly started happening around the same time was because of Nintendo's 5.0 firmware update, which went live on March 12 and caused a stream of compatibility issues. Now, you could make the argument Nintendo intentionally sabotaged third-party docks to drive people towards its official accessories. You could also see it from Nintendo's side, that any third-party product like the Nyko or Fast-Snail docks hadn't undergone Nintendo's testing process, and therefore Nintendo doesn't have a responsibility to make them work, since they're unlicensed. Anyway, Nintendo put out a firmware update later that month to remedy the damage, and everything is great, apart from all the bad stuff. Number 5. This is the bug in Oblivion's 2008 expansion, Shivering Isles, which led to the Red Ring of Death. Memories. Essentially, the bug caused the game to run out of memory, which meant that after a while, there would be no space left for it to load in new levels and items. That's a simple explanation. Now, here's a slightly more in-depth one. Every item in the game has an ID number, and there's only so many IDs the game can contain. In Shivering Isles, some items were mistakenly assigned several ID numbers, so the internal space was exhausted much sooner than intended. Side effects included making objects disappear from the game world, bringing the frame rate down to unplayable levels, and in some severe cases, making Xbox 360s overheat and show that infamous Red Ring of Death. The bug was serious enough for Bethesda to come right out and immediately address it on its official site, and it did issue a prompt update to fix it, but for a few days in 2008, this glitch could render both Shivering Isles and Oblivion unplayable and send your console to hell, which is what I call CEX. Sixth up, we are talking Nintendo 3DS and how playing pirated games on it could allegedly brick your device. Back in 2011, there was controversy over R4 cards, which, if you didn't know, are cartridges containing dozens of DS games downloaded from the internet. You just pop that into your 3DS and you could start playing loads of quality, absolute quality DS games. That's if you wanted to break the law, because R4 cards were made illegal in 2010. Here's where the bricking comes in. In 2011, Japanese retailer Enterking wrote on its site, if you use equipment which is illegal or unapproved by Nintendo, or if you do customization which is unapproved by Nintendo, there is a possibility that Nintendo 3DS becomes non-bootable by system updates. Nintendo never verified this itself, but it also never denied it too, which turned out to be a masterstroke. That's because it generated loads of paranoia about using R4 cards. People thought Nintendo might detect you and shut down your system. There don't seem to be any cases of Nintendo remotely bricking anyone's console, but there are plenty of people put off by the potential for that to happen, and that's fine because, again, R4 cards, very illegal. For the 7th and final entry, we're gonna go back to 1994 for Final Fantasy III. Now, it was a great game, loved by many, but I'll tell you what's not great, getting your little heart broken when the game destroyed your SNES. Or at least destroyed its capacity for you to play it for a bit. That's due to something called the sketch bug. Now, the sketch bug mostly caused graphical errors and made the game freeze, but in some reported cases, it completely erased your data. The bug triggered whenever the character called Realm missed the target she's supposed to sketch. This happens when an enemy turns invisible, for instance. To get technical for a sec, the bug is caused by a coding error where the game tries to load data from the wrong place. So, despite Realm failing to use sketch on an enemy, the game still tries to load the monster's sprite data and fails spectacularly, sometimes filling the player's inventory to the brim with random items and even crashing your game and wiping your data. The American release of the game removed this bug, but in its first form, if you played Final Fantasy III, not to be dramatic, but you might as well have thrown your SNES directly out the window. So there we have 7 game-breaking bugs that kill consoles and wipe saves. I learned a valuable lesson here, that nothing works and everything breaks all the time, especially expensive things, but big corporations will always fix it a few days later. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, please subscribe to my channel, Game Griffin. I've been Game Griffin and I still am, that's not me. Enjoy the rest of your life.